Hey, it's the AI guys. It is Ken Peel along with Sagar Pandya and the rest of the Spedge team back with you for episode number 3 of Prompt First, Ask Later. It's the podcast where we talk about all things AI, and we want you to be informed as well as just encouraged to try AI. And so we're going to talk a little bit today about some misconceptions that we've come across in our discussions, either personally, with our families, friends, with coworkers, with clients about AI. And so I wanted to start off with, first of all, I told Sagar about this story of how we were around the dinner table one night here, and Sean and his family was with us, and we were talking about AI, and my wife works for it's called the Kiwani Sale Barn. And this place is where they sell livestock and they sell miscellaneous merchandise and all kinds of things like that. And so we were talking about AI and what I do. And she said, yeah, I had this one guy come in and we were talking and I told him that you worked in the AI field. And he goes, oh, that's really interesting. So does he have a lot of experience in artificial insemination? and I said, okay. And she said, she tried to explain to him, it's not that type of AI, but it's the, computer type AI. But that was a really interesting conversation and sparked a thought about the different misconceptions about AI, what it is, and things like that. So I guess I'll throw it out there for you guys. Maybe you haven't had that experience of, artificial insemination. At least I'm hoping you haven't. But have you guys had some similar experiences where people are just kind of confused about what AI is all about?
I mean, the first one I always get is a little bit of fear. We've all seen the Terminator movies. So,
right.
They're like, when's it going to take over? When's Skynet happening? I'm like, well, I think we got at least 2 years before that happens. So,
is that a prediction,
that's
Sean?
the first one I always get. Yeah, probably 2 years. Yeah, that's Judgment Day. Yeah.
What's the year that Arnold Schwarzenegger says in the car when he's driving? August 29th, 1997 at approximately 3:24 a.m. or something. The system became self-aware. I love the Terminator movies. I've seen them a billion times.
Me too. Yeah.
I agree with you.
Some of my very favorites.
I think I echo Sean. Sean, I echo what you say. Half our job here is educating and elevating people and their knowledge. Ken, I don't have a funny story like yours, but I want to give a shout out to my mom right now because she is my benchmark of when I know that something has gone mainstream. So this happened a couple times in my life. When the iPhone first came out, and we're talking 2007 is when the first iPhone came out, and around like 2009 or 2010, I remember her asking me, she's like, hey, what's this big deal around iPhones and apps? What are those about? I'm like, all right, it's mainstream because my mother, who I love her to death, but she's not very technical from the sense that we expect today. So that was the first time. The second time was this craze around crypto and Bitcoin. So depending on when you first learned about it, crypto's been around for almost 18 years now. I'd say this was like mid 2015. And it was during the holidays. My mom came up to me and she's like, what's the big deal about Bitcoin? How do I buy a Bitcoin? I'm like, oh boy. So I think, crypto has become mainstream if my mom's asking how to buy one. Same thing with AI. This must have been late 2024, maybe again during the holidays. I guess there's a theme here that I'm saying. During the holidays is when I get realizations that things have been mainstream. Mom's asking, she's like, what's the deal with ChatGPT? How do I use it? That's what I was like, all right. It's mainstream now. So given us looking back now in March of 2026 as of this recording, it makes sense. Most people have used ChatGPT at a minimum. And Ken, that's my story on how, AI has become mainstream for my family and how I benchmark and measure that. It's when my mom asked me about it.
Yeah, right. I think, when we talk about like ChatGPT, I kind of equate it to like when somebody wants a tissue to blow their nose or whatever. There's those that maybe are, I guess, trained to say, I want a Kleenex. Well, that's a brand name. It's not a tissue. And I'm just wondering if maybe we've gotten kind of that way with AI because a lot of people the only thing they're familiar with AI is ChatGPT and are unaware of maybe some of the other tools that are out there to use. Not that ChatGPT is bad necessarily, but maybe it's not right for what I want to do or what somebody else wants to do. I don't know if you guys have experienced that or not, that kind of generic labeling, if you will, to what AI is.
Yeah, Ken, I can definitely say that when I talk to my parents, they think AI is synonymous with just ChatGPT.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot of folks just think of it as, I would equate it to, I think the term still applies, Googling it. Most people think
Right.
of like, hey, I need to go something research on the web. I'm going to go Google it. Obviously, there are other search engines, but Google is the prevalent one. I think it's kind of similar. And that's where I find, explaining to folks what's the difference between, large language models, LLMs, and what is the difference between a standard ChatGPT, customized version, just the idea of how a large language model works is different than just the tool. It's the whole concept of how it operates. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it's for kudos to ChatGPT for being first and obviously driving the majority of awareness, I'd say, early on.
Yeah.
But I think there are a lot of great competitors that are very close, and some of them I think are ahead in some of the use case.
Yeah. What are some of the other ones that you guys have used that maybe people aren't familiar with that are tuning into this particular podcast? There's other tools that are out there that maybe are more specific for writing code or whatever the case might be. But what's some of the other ones? Joseph, what's some of the other ones that you have used other than the norm?
Yeah, I've gone down lots of rabbit holes trying to figure out what the strengths of various models are. And to be honest with you, the one that I probably use the most is just the AI results when I Google, because there's that option now where it used to be that Wikipedia results were the top
Right.
link, but now the Google AI generated results are the top link. And to be honest with you, I just click on that and typically it actually addresses the information that I'm looking for. But then, so Gemini in a sense is the one that I probably end up using the most by default of the fact that it's attached to Google. But I've used Claude, and we use Claude as you all know, we use Claude a lot in our work. But I've gone down the rabbit hole of exploring these kind of open models as well, and like GLM5, very powerful model. But I think that's something that as this is developing and as I'm kind of being exposed to this whole world, is that it's not just a ChatGPT thing, and it's not just Gemini, Google / Anthropic thing, because Anthropic has been in the news a lot of late, but that there's this whole universe of things going on. And frankly, a lot of models that are originating from China as well that are very capable, very powerful. And so just using a lot of them, Ministrel is another one that I've kind of come across, and I've set that up actually on my local laptop as well, just for a fun experiment. And so
Yeah.
there's a real landscape out there, and it's like Alice in Wonderland at times when you're trying to navigate through all of that.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So I was talking with a friend of mine who also happens to be my financial advisor the other day, and we were talking about planning and the future and all those different types of things. And his organization has basically, I was talking with him about AI, and his organization has adopted Copilot as their AI tool that they're using in their financial world. And I shared a little bit about my experience with the different models that I've tried and things like that. And he goes, well, I'm sure they've done their due diligence, and that's what they've chosen to use is Copilot. That's obviously, I would say, partially because it's built into Microsoft's, environment that everybody is using these days, your M365 environment, right?
Well, there's been a pretty strong push by Microsoft to market Copilot to the general public. Have you seen that the commercial about the guy in the pizza shop? He's trying to increase his pizza sales, and so he just turns on Copilot, punches it in, and all of a sudden he has a long line out the door around the block because of the wonders of Copilot. So that's been kind of a push of late, I noticed, with Microsoft to try to incorporate that into daily life from a consumer profile.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting, that example where you just wave the magic wand of AI and poof, things happen, Joseph. So it was an interesting commercial. Not necessarily always the case, as everybody on this podcast knows it takes the effort to get it to a point, but it's nice to imagine the stuff that it does now does lead to a pathway where we could increase the sales. But you're right. Microsoft is doing a heck of a lot of marketing and pushing to get people, especially Super Bowl. How many AI commercials did we see during this year's Super Bowl?
The most.
I think every major AI provider had some type of Super Bowl ad. I think, in my opinion, Anthropic had the best produced ones that just kind of said no ads.
They were trolling.
No ads. No ads.
You know what was
funny?
The weirdest one was Amazon's their Alexa thing with Chris Hemsworth.
Very strange. Sitting on the counter.
How do I take out Chris Hemsworth? It's like you can't because he's
closing the pool now.
He has Mjolnir. You can't take out Mjolnir. But he's the only one worthy of carrying except for Chris Evans. But there was a lot of focus, it seems, from a marketing perspective, interestingly, on AI for the consumer. And the interesting thing, I think, is, especially as it relates to our work, is that I think the AI revolution is going to begin first from a business perspective, from kind of whether B2B or just like or data analytics, workflow processes, kind of the stuff that we're involved in. And I think that's going to be really the forefront of the AI revolution. And the consumer stuff is just to change kind of public perception.
Yeah.
And mind shift.
And Sean, you've seen that in some of the work when we deploy it. It's like, I think half our job is being therapists. We have to change behaviors before the magic of the stuff that we're making makes the impact. And I know you've been doing this a long time, software engineering, just implementation. Has that behavior changed? Is it different now? Is it at a faster velocity? Do you require less convincing, or is it the opposite? How has it changed in what you've seen the decades that you've been implementing and building things?
Yeah, so the time to market is definitely at least 10 times faster. We can get things done quite a bit with a lot of speed. And so it sort of depends on who you're talking to. Large corporations tend to seem to view things the way they were 3 years ago. They sort of buy that same way. They think in timelines that same way. So helping them understand like the speed that you can move at is always a challenge. The one thing that's different, I would say, as far as buying behaviors is people understand now that like you have to use AI in order to compete. You need to leverage it so you can 10x whatever it is you're doing if it comes from the perspective of something like actuary or medical records or anything like that. The people are aware of it. They know they need it. They just don't know. They don't know what they need it for yet. I think they view it like that Copilot commercial, like you just wave a magic wand. And so you got to kind of explain, and you still have to do due diligence, dig in. You got to do all the stuff that Joseph's excellent at, analyzing processes, helping them figure out where to best leverage it in their organization, and helping them understand that it's not just a magic wand, but it does require some thought and skill, and then a good culture too.
And Ken, we've talked about this.
Yeah.
The rest of the team as well, but this mindset of wave a magic wand and magically AI is just going to do anything possible. Lines out the door, read a bunch of documents, build a business plan. And obviously these AI providers, they take advantage of that notion and they create headlines and stories and blogs and advertisements that paint that picture. And we've talked about this with customers. Are we in the business of getting people displaced because of the stuff that we're creating? And Ken, I know you and I have talked at great length about that offline in various capacities, but that's always been an interesting topic for me. Is AI really going to come and take over the world? And what are we humans going to be doing then? What's our purpose? I know Alex, from a governance and security standpoint and just creating guardrails, there's like a lot of unanswered questions that we just don't know right now. We just have to figure it out. That's always interesting to me, based on Sean's point, is like, hey, are the AI overlords really here? Or is the advertisement from like a Copilot and the ads that we see from them, are they creating just as misrepresented false reality? I don't know. Time will tell.
People
I guess
like
2 years.
Elon Musk are saying that it will displace a lot of jobs, and we're going to need a universal basic income in order to sort of live and be humans. Yep. So like just from like celebrity or people who talk, and I can understand that fear because some people are saying stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, as a matter of fact, that just brings up the other thought that I had in that conversation that we had talking with my wife about her workplace. A lot of people are fearful about, is AI going to take my job? And Sean, you and I talked a little bit about this that night about this, and the answer is, well, it can replace jobs. I mean, that's the idea, is that it's going to simplify some things, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be out of a job necessarily. You might have to change your thinking. You might have to change your skill set a little bit to learn how to use these tools. I think you had a really great way of talking about that night, about how, it might replace some jobs, but that gives more opportunity.
Yeah, I also think, like, as a software developer for a long time, it became very important a few years ago to start to learn how to use the AI tools to do my job. I think what's going to happen is people who are resistant to learning, it's not gonna change what we do in terms of, like, I'll still be a developer, but if I'm a developer who refuses to learn the tooling and learn how to use, say, code to 10x what I do, then I'll probably in a few years be looking for a job because I refuse to learn the new stuff. And I think that's going to be the case in a lot of industries. You're going to need to learn how to use AI to do your job better and faster. And those who learn, I think, are going to have a leg up on those who refuse to. And that's the way I see it.
I agree, Sean. I think there's a lot of it's kind of like when Excel came out and people said, "Oh, I don't need to learn this thing." If you worked in financial services or any kind of number crunching job, well, you better learn Excel, otherwise, your job was very difficult. Now, today, I don't know if you need to know every single Excel formula the way you had to know 5-10 years ago, because you probably can ask LLM to help you build things through.
Copilot.
So which is a very which is great. Copilot, I mean, all of them are getting extremely good at it. And my concern is always how you're going to spot if there was a mistake without knowing the underlying tooling itself. I think that is a risk still today, where folks learn something without ever learn completely through an LLM without ever touching and learning the product the way it was. So there's still concerns on my end there, but of course it's getting a lot better. So those are I think are gonna, those refinements are gonna take some time before we completely misplace every single person that knows Excel.
Yeah,
as an example.
I wonder if I get why people are concerned about their jobs. That makes sense. But I wonder if it's an overly narrow view, because people are going to lose their jobs, but there are going to be new opportunities, as we're saying here. But what is going on is not about jobs. What's going on is like kind of a historic epoch. It's like the transition from hunter-gatherer to agrarian. It's the transition from like the mercantile merchant economy to like an industrial economy, industrial to information. And that doesn't just touch jobs. That touches like everyday life in every way. It rearranges our civilization, essentially. And so that's not comforting for someone who's anxious about their job, obviously. But in another respect, it's like it's more than about jobs. There's a wave coming that's going to change everything about the way we live and the way the world works. And jobs and the transformation of opportunities is part of that, but it's going to be more than that as well, like those other epochs.
Sure. Yeah, I was just going to say that I think that learning to adapt, okay, for me, it has been a huge difference in adjusting to the whole marketplace and jobs and things like that. I mean, the last 9 months or so has been huge in trying to learn and trying to adapt and trying to change, but it's necessary. And if we don't at least attempt to learn some of it, and I'm not saying that everybody's going to be at the level like Sean is, where you're programming and you're coding and you're doing all of that, but at least being able to use some of the tools that are out there. And that's my encouragement for people that are facing these different changes is don't be afraid to learn. Don't stop learning and really try to adapt and maybe you learn slow. That's okay. Right, Sagar? I mean, people, if they learn at least a little bit something every day, then they're growing.
Absolutely. And I say this often. You guys hear me yap about this, which is if we can just be consistently good versus inconsistently perfect, you get compounding momentum in your knowledge around using AI tools. It doesn't mean you got to spend an entire weekend and 16 hours over a weekend neglecting your family and digging in, as fun as it sounds, learning AI tools like Claude or OpenClaw or anything else that's like the hot topic for the week. But if you can consistently change what I call the behaviors around AI tools, that allows you then to become even more in tune with the capabilities of what's possible. And I love when Sean said, elevating ourselves and using these tools to continue increasing our productivity. That's exactly what the AI tools do. And I always talk about like domain expertise combined with AI horsepower together. That creates a powerful combination. Most people, and I'm not surprised by this though, and I'd love for the group to expand a little bit on, is most people don't know where to start. There's a fire hose of information. There's news articles that are released every day. We have a curated service, news.spedge.ai, that tells you about this stuff. And I'd refer back to the group. If anyone wants to answer, people always asking, where do we begin? What's the first thing to do from an AI perspective when there's a billion things that you can look at? What do you guys think? What's a good piece of advice for folks on where they can start? What's the first thing that they can do?
So if I were starting now, I'm a little bit Claude pilled right now. So I guess the term is. I mean,
Yeah.
big fan of Claude right now. It does pretty good stuff. I would say go to Claude.ai, and then ask it, tell it who you are, and tell it what you do for a job, tell it the things you're interested in, and then ask it how you can begin to learn. That's how I would start.
No, I was gonna say for personal, absolutely, I think that's the right way. Just go ask. For if you're thinking if you have a small business or a particular problem, I would actually, without putting specifics, I would say what are the challenges that you have today, and it can give you a couple good ideas on what areas it's actually good at. And without going into huge amount of details, one of the big limitations I think that's important to mention for a lot of LLMs is actually the quality and the source of your data. Like I think that's one misconception we talked about earlier, Ken, is the way that people misconceive. Well, if you have a really poor set of data sets that you don't trust, I would not trust AI to fix it. It's not going to go well. It could actually make it worse. It can mislead you because it's reading bad information. And we've seen that in practice. We've all seen that in practice. So I think that's what important, cautionary advice is. It's kind of like I used to say, people, process, technology. Well, for sure, process and data is the key in solving any problem.
Yeah. This is the Prompt First, Ask Later podcast, and we're talking about just misconceptions about AI. And one of the things that I run into a lot, at least in my community, because it is a high agricultural area, and there's a lot of people that aren't familiar with what tools are out there. And the common phrase that I get is, well, I'm not a techie person. I'm not a tech person at all. How would you talk to somebody that says that to you, says, I'm not a tech person, I really don't see the need to use this stuff?
Well, I wouldn't say this directly first, but the first thought I would have is to try to understand them. Like, what do you mean by techie person? Like, what is that?
Yeah.
What does that exactly mean? Because in some respects, if I'm dealing with people in your community that are like high-end agriculture workers, I'd say that's funny. I'm not really a techie person as well as it relates to the tech that you work with. I have no idea how to use that stuff. And I know that agricultural productivity is increased because of technology. So in that sense, framing technology is not just things on silicon or things that you see in the news, but it's really all around us and improving our lives and making things more efficient all around us. Farming, full of technology.
Yeah.
Whether it be all the way from Monsanto with seeds to grazing equipment or whatever it might be. And so I turn that around and suggest that, but also to say, well, I could try to find out about that equipment by just learning, by curiosity, and just encourage, as it relates to AI, be curious. If there's anything in life that you've been curious about, put it into AI and just try it, see how it responds, and have a little conversation about that topic that's been nagging at you, and you'll be off on a journey.
One thing I noticed too is farmers and the folks in rural Illinois tend to do everything themselves. So they're some of the most ingenious people who can fix pretty much anything you could think of. And so anything from like your tractor to your car, sometimes they'll make things they need. And the cool thing is like I used to say, I think if I lived in Chicago, I'm like, man, if we're on the subway and somebody's having a baby, if I had the right YouTube video, I could help them deliver the baby. But now with ChatGPT, Claude, these tools, what I found to be super helpful just in day to day is if I need instructions to do something, oftentimes the results I get, like either through Gemini or these other tools, are a lot better than just a simple search, internet search, and then finding like a Reddit forum or something like that. What I would tell a person in this community, like, well, do you ever look up things on the internet to try to figure out how to fix your tractor or how to fix, I don't know, anything in your barn or whatever it is on your farm? And I'm going to guess they would say yes. I'd say, well, if you want better information, a lot of times these tools will consolidate and give you like the top set of instructions and save you a whole lot of time when you're looking.
Yeah.
So even from a
Sean-
day-to-day use case, like that kind of thing is helpful.
Sean brings up a good point that reminds me Google has dominated search for almost 3 decades now. 1998 was when Google came out. So almost 30 years. We have historically lived in the search engine era, search engine optimization, and Google built their entire business off of that. And Sean, you bring up a great point that reminds me we are now in the answer engine era. You no longer have to search something. And for all the marketers that are watching, the search engine results page, how many businesses and marketing consultancies were built on SEO, search engine results page? And then Joseph's example earlier today where he's using AI mode in Google. Joseph, you're not having to browse different websites and blue and purple links to get to an answer. The AI is giving you the answer. How is that answer developed, though? What type of answer engine optimization and other things based on how Gemini was trained get to that end result? So absolutely, Sean, when you say we have more directed steps on how to do the work, allows layman folks and folks that may not have expertise in a particular skill to be able to then use AI. And I use this example of the movie The Matrix, where Neo gets plugged in and learns Kung Fu with the skill that they develop. We live in that era now. So we're like in an answer engine era where I'm not an ag tech person. I could probably ask Claude or look up a video and figure out how to do damn near anything at this point. Maybe not as fast as maybe Ken could do something, but I could probably get to an end result that's still successful.
Yeah. So for those that maybe say that they're, not techie, things like that, I just wanted to poke around and see what's something you guys have used AI for that you would classify as untechy. Something that's not really tech related, but you've used AI for it. Alex, you had mentioned on our last episode about plumbers.
Yeah, putting aside that's a good one. I actually use it because I am really bad, have a really bad judgment when it comes to different types of plants. And my wife makes fun of me, and I don't know the difference between like the berries you can eat and you can't eat. So, and I'm not like exactly walking around the forest mushroom hunting, but if I was, I would have my phone with me. And now you can, and I've tested this. You can take a picture and ask it, "Is this an edible mushroom?" Now, I didn't eat the mushroom, so I will say that while I trust it, I wouldn't exactly, but it tells me, it says it's this type of mushroom based on the picture. Is this I had a debate about what kind of hardwood I have, and I took a picture of the bark, and it told me that this is a birch tree, or it told me this is it. I think that non-techie, if you have even a free version of ChatGPT, and you ever have a question about something, try to take a picture and ask it, and you will be amazed how much it's able and how fast it can do and find information. Still with caution on checking some of the facts, but it gives you the sources, so you're able to go and see a lot of it.
Well, Ken, you built your own cabinets for your new kitchen using AI, didn't you?
Yeah, and we're still in the process. We took measurements, and we said, this is the measurements that I want to make the cabinets, and I need to know how many sheets of plywood I need to buy, and what are some of the different ways that I can join the cabinets together and all this different stuff. And I just asked AI what it would be, and it came out with a whole plan how to build these cabinets
and everything. right?
Yeah, and pictures. Basically, it's a graph of what to cut out of a piece of plywood. So I mean, there's a lot of things that we can do and use AI for to get acquainted with it and to overcome some fears or misconceptions we might have. Joseph, I'm curious. You are a pretty intellectual and very sophisticated guy. I want to know what's something untechy that you have used AI for.
Just asking about health stuff. Like I have this itch or a rash like on my arm here, and I might take a little picture of it and say, "What do you think?" That kind of thing. That's maybe a TMI, but yeah, it's just little things like that. Just it's just it's a little cricket on my shoulder that I can just ask if I'm curious about something. I mean, by nature, I'm a pretty curious guy. So I'll input, I might be grocery shopping, for example, and I'll just take a picture of the ingredients on a particular product and say, tell me about these products. tell me about these ingredients. Like, is there anything I should be worried about here? Or what, like this shoe, like I bought some shoes recently. I said, this shoe versus this shoe. What's your thoughts on that or what have you? But I also wanted to add to kind of Alex's point about verify and he's that's cool in finding out more about Alex that this is kind of a running theme for him, which makes sense for what he does. But what part of what I'm hoping as well is in our understanding and grasp that you got to be careful with AI, which I totally agree with, is that there is kind of a renewed kind of sense of just understanding that there could be mistakes with human beings a lot. I mean, I'm calling back to the example of the autonomous driving. We have concerns about, rightfully so, about autonomous vehicles, but it's like, well, let's remember that there are probably more errors with human-driven vehicles than anything. And so I hope there's a return to just really thinking critically about the world around us in general and about information that we receive from any source, whether they be human or from a model.
Sagar, what about you? What's something that you've done that's untechy that would classify as that using AI?
Itinerary and trip planning. I am terrible at that. I am not organized. I can't put thoughts together. Shout out to my wife because she's incredible at this stuff, but it shouldn't always be her burden. So we're going to London in a few weeks, and laying in bed when I couldn't sleep, I decided I wanted a trip plan with Gemini. So here's my workflow. Gemini is already connected to my personal Gmail. So it knows our flight times and our hotel where we're going to stay. I think we're staying at a Moxie or something in the city in London. I'm not familiar with the area. So I had Gemini look through and it found my flight times and where we're staying. I described what we're into, sightseeing, the old British feel to see, historically what's been happening. And it went through and it created an entire itinerary, including some food preferences that we have, where we're staying, how much activity we want to do. It created the entire itinerary, the outline, scheduled. It then, within the same Gemini window with Nano Banana, created some graphics, and then with Notebook LM, put it together into a presentation in bed from my phone. And then I was able to share that with my wife. So when she wakes up the next day, she was already sleeping. I think this was like midnight, right? Nocturnal folks, holler. So I sent it to her, and if she's watching this, she's going to find out that it wasn't me that made it, but it was AI, and that's fine. But from my phone, I was able to, and it took me probably 10 to 15 minutes, Ken, to be able to do this. Now, I don't consider that a very technical execution. I'm not reviewing cloud environments or doing a cybersecurity audit. I'm putting together an itinerary for a trip we're having in a few weeks. Historically, I would have probably waited till the last moment because it's just a time suck that I just don't want to go through in that moment. Since I had Gemini, I was able to think about the schedule, the itinerary, some graphics, and an entire presentation, which we could literally print out and just use to walk through our day. It took me 10 to 15 minutes, and it did a pretty damn good job of identifying different things to do and some buffer time for walking and restaurants. My wife's a vegetarian, so it highlighted that and said, here's some of the vegetarian options that she may like, which was just mind-blowing to me. And we have these tools at our disposal for a really small price point from an individual standpoint. So to Alex's point, this example, how we can transform that workflow of trip planning and creating a presentation and doing that inside of organizations. How many of those time-sucking workflows exist inside of companies that AI tools can now just autonomously or agentically handle? That's the big word this year.
Yeah.
That's why it's incredibly exciting, all the stuff that we do. You don't have to think about it. I love the techie example. For all that are watching, you don't have to be a technical individual doing technical work like scientific research or some very precision-driven manufacturing. You could be just doing any generic, any important process inside of an organization and giving AI a chance to review it and be part of that. That's why everyone is so bullish on this stuff, and that's why you hear headlines and hear about AI every single day, and that's why I yap about it every day on LinkedIn, because we have the opportunity to outsource some of this mundane, time-sucking work. And I'd rather spend time reviewing the itinerary and getting excited versus head down, putting together a spreadsheet and generating graphics to put together a plan. That's been really exciting for me personally.
Sagar, I think you're onto something, because when I try to describe what the benefit of AI is in general, I try to distill it just to simple. It is the reduction or even elimination of drudgery.
Yeah.
The reduction of drudgery.
Yeah.
You know,
I love that.
Do you dread something? AI will help you reduce or eliminate that drudgery.
I like that.
Increase quality of life for yourself or for your staff, for the people that work for you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, AI might not help you with that specifically, but if it eliminates the drudgery, then yeah, then it's on you. Then it's on you, on us, to try to improve our quality of life within our control. But man, to get rid of drudgery,
sign me up.
Trip planning, like you're saying, that's what AI can do. And then going back to some of the things about Alex talking about workflows and data analysis and Excel, like formulas and things like that, that's all AI can do. And even if you're trained on that stuff, it could be drudgery. But AI, guess what, could eliminate that or reduce it greatly.
Yeah, for sure. Well, as we bring this episode to a close, I just want to challenge those that are watching this and even ourselves. Try one AI tool that maybe you've never used before, other than if you've used ChatGPT. Try something new, try something different, and try something of maybe some of the suggestions we've given you of untechy things to do, and then try and expand your knowledge a little bit. And if you're a business owner, you're a CEO, you're a business executive, and you're wanting to get more information about how to incorporate AI into your business, we're here. We'd love to help you get started with that or advance your efforts that you're already doing. You can go to spedge.ai and find out more. And of course, you can listen to this podcast as well. Prompt First, Ask Later. It's on YouTube, it's on Spotify, it's on Apple Podcasts. We would love to have you join us. And if you want to leave a comment too on this video or on one of the podcasts, maybe a tool that you've used recently or a new one you tried and the results, we'd love to have those and maybe comment in future episodes about some of the different things that we've tried and we've used. Guys, thanks. Always a privilege. And again, we appreciate you joining us here on Prompt First, Ask Later from Spedge and the Spedge team. Thanks, guys.